welcome to another episode of Transcend Podcast. I am so excited today to talk to a good friend, Jackie Cote. So, hi, Jackie. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think we'll just start out with just a little bit about you. Obviously, I did an intro bio and, told the world who you are, but I'd love for you to kind of share with the listeners who you are, and we'll go from there.
Okay, it started when I was 2. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go that far back. I'm originally a Jersey girl, born and raised there, but never really went back. But what I ended up into after going to college and getting the degree and going for the good job with the benefits, I was a teacher for a year and was like, no, this is not me. That was like, I felt like an animal in a cage being like, I can't do this for this period of time. So where that led me was into the restaurant business. And that was 30 years of leadership management in the restaurant business, where I was mentoring and coaching and helping people get to their next level. I promoted over 300 managers. But that was a lot. I don't know if you've ever been in the restaurant business, but it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
It's like 10, 12-hour days, 70-hour weeks. I traveled the last 2 years. I traveled a lot all around the country. I did a lot of restaurant openings. And my dad used to always ask me, which is ironic because my dad ran his own construction company and worked 90 hours a week. And he looked at me and he goes, "Why are you working so hard? Like, why do you do this business?" And I was like, "I learned this from you, Dad." So I learned how to work hard. I learned how to like push, struggle, get through, and prove myself. And I did really well in that industry. But what kept me going every day was the part that I got to hold the gift of belief for people and hold it there till they got there. So people who like came to me not really speaking English very well, running their own locations like a year or two later. People who were had families, young families, and I was able to get them moved to higher levels of income so they could supply more money and take care of their family in a better way and buy their first homes and stuff like that. So that was really just drove me and motivated me. But I got to tell you, the last 2 years I made a change and I went into a corporate office position. And this all kind of leads up to why I am the coach I am today. That corporate office position was hilarious because that's like me again, back in a cage. And I'm a freedom person. That's why I call myself a freedom coach, right? And I felt very resistant for almost the whole 2 years I was there. And I learned a lot, and I'm very grateful for what in hindsight, right? Hindsight's 2020. But what I learned there, I definitely brought to the table where I am today. But the biggest pivotal point there that turned me into being a coach was getting fired. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so that's from that point, I had to decide, do I want to build a business? And there's more to this story. If you want to go into it, we can. But I had to decide, do I want to bet on me or go back and get another job? Because in the restaurant industry, it's super easy. Like I can pick up a job like that. I got 3 offers actually, and I had to have the strength to turn them down when I wasn't making any money and going into trying to decide, do I want to bet on me? And then I ended up being into my own coaching business.
Yeah. Well, what a story. I wrote down a couple things because I think you brought up so many good points, but I think the number one thing that I heard you say was like holding this gift of belief for people. And I know that so much from you because, so for listeners, Jackie and I met at a retreat, so a women's retreat. And I had virtually known Jackie, like knew her name and she kind of knew my name, I guess. But just meeting her was, I mean, Jackie is just such like a force of just really holding that belief space for people. So I love that that's like one of your biggest takeaways from that space that you were in was this like notice of the ability for you to hold the belief for other people. And so what an incredible piece to take away and then to take into what you're doing today. So I love that you shared that. I'm curious with that, do you have a favorite experience or story that really allowed you to go, wow, like this is really like, this is what I'm doing for people? Like, was there a moment where that was like an aha moment for you to realize that and then be able to go, wow, if I'm doing that here, where else can I do that?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. I like that question. Um, I would thinking like right after as you were saying that, there's a gentleman, his name is Barinder, and he came from here from another country, and he's a very like, you know, put together, well dressed, very kind, hardworking, obviously, like just he was established in his country, but when he came here, nothing transferred over. Like
Mm,
they have to start from scratch. Most have to
yeah.
start from scratch, like your college credits or this or that or whatever your schooling, your degrees or your accreditations, like very few things carry over. And he came in to Starbucks when I was a manager at Starbucks and wanted a job, and I was like, this man is way overqualified for like a,
Yeah.
I don't know, it was like a $10 an hour job, right, for a supervisor, right? And and he's someone that I brought in as an hourly manager, and he like was the hardest worker I've ever met in my life. He was the most respected, and
Mm,
he worked his way up into different positions, and eventually left Starbucks to become a manager of hotels. And it's funny, like I I didn't realize, I knew I made an impact, right? And I knew like he moved up, and he was always so grateful. Like he is the epitome of gratitude.
mm,
He would tell me all the time. He's like, "Thank you for giving me an opportunity." And I'm like, all I could give you was like a $10 an hour job, right? Like
yeah.
to me, I was like, I didn't really see, and it didn't click until he got like this award, and he called me, and he's like, "I got this award because of you at the hotel." And I was like, what? I started to cry. I'm like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? And he goes, if it wasn't for you seeing me for who I was in that moment and not like judging me for what I wasn't, he goes, I wouldn't
Mm,
have ever had the opportunity to do what I'm doing here. Like, I believe that he would have been successful wherever he went, but I happened to be the one that was in his path that gave him that gift of belief that he could
yeah.
reestablish himself and rebuild himself. And now he's like a massive big wig, and I don't even know which chain, but like we stay in touch every now and then, and he
Yeah.
always like, sends me little holiday messages. But and now he has a family, like he got married and he has
Yeah.
kids, and it's just my heart bursts with joy when I see where people are today. And if we can all just make, we don't realize the impact we make, and it's just one little thing can change a trajectory, like one
Yeah.
choice, one thing, one
Yeah.
statement. People are listening, people are watching, and so it's so
Yeah.
important that you show up. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's
No, thank you for sharing that story with me. I love how he said to you, thank you for seeing me for what I was and not judging me for what I wasn't.
mm-hmm.
I mean, that space is so powerful because it does bring possibility, right? It does bring opportunity. What do you think? You mentioned a little bit about your dad being kind of the person who showed you how to work hard and, you know, challenge yourself and stay focused and driven. But what do you think, allowed you to see what people were and not judge them for what they weren't? Was there something, when you grew up? Because I know you put on, for the listeners, I have all these guests fill out a form, so I have some more information about them. And Jackie said she was the youngest of seven children. So, and seven siblings. So, or six siblings. So, was there something as you grew up that allowed you to see people for what they were versus, go
Mm-hmm.
into that judgment space?
Another great question. You're good at this.
Ooh,
So,
thank you.
just so you guys know, guys, I've done this before. She's really good at this. And so there's two things that come up for me with that. The first one is my dad was the oldest of 10 from Canada, and was pulled off out of school at third grade to help run the farm with his dad.
Oh,
And so he had a third grade education, and then did some military time, and then came to this country, and he did everything from lumberjack to worked with like as a construction employee, for people, and worked his way in this country to build his own business. And so it was a example for me that really helped me see that like you can do anything. I mean, he of course he used to always be like, oh, I should have done that and I could have, and blah blah blah, but and I always say, Dad, don't shit on yourself, right? But he really showed me that you can be anything and do anything. Now on the other hand, there was a lot of things that I took from the like watching him struggle and watching him push and like work really hard and tons of hours really taught me that like the struggle is real and you're gonna like and then one of the patterns in his business was that he built it really high and then he'd lose it because of people like letting people walk on him and stuff. And he was very kind, and he would like lose $500,000 deals and like he would do them and people wouldn't pay him. And so I watched this like build and have to rebuild and
Mm,
the ups and downs of business. And so a story that got ingrained into my brain, which I didn't realize until after I worked with a coach,
sure.
that was I have to I get to do all this and it gets to disappear and I get to do it again and like almost like a champion effect. And I
Yeah.
became this person who wanted the champion effect. And that's a that struggle I've discovered over time is like it's not real. It doesn't have to be real. And it gets to be
Yeah.
done with ease and grace, and you get to start with a new baseline each time you raise your level. The other one would be like my mom died when I was 5, and my stepmom came into my life when I was 7, and they dated for like 8 years. And when they got married, my sophomore year of high school, I had to merge myself into another home. And being the baby, you would think, by the way, that the baby gets everything, but the baby of 6 and then 2 step, there's nothing left. I just want you all to know. I had to pay for everything since I was like 14, and I'm not complaining about that. It really developed me on who I am today. But there was this moment, I was kind of the quiet, geeky kid in like the schools before. But when I came into this new school in this new town made of money, and we were not made of money, and I was very much like I had my hand-me-downs of my brothers. I had like my dad would take me to barber shops because he was raising 4 boys above me, like,
Sure.
and he's like, I don't know what to do. So he brings me home to my stepmom. My stepmom's like multiple times during the 8 years before he moved in, she'd be like, "What are you doing to this girl?" She would like grab my hand and take me to like a beauty shop, not a barber.
Aw.
She
Yeah.
would take me clothes shopping and not like, and so there's these little things that she would do. And she was really strict, but there was things she would do that would show me that like, no, 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 no. Like you get to live like a woman, you know, and you
Yeah.
get to be you. And she taught me strength of a woman. And I
Mm,
got to witness her. She's a very, very strong woman. And she also, her husband passed away. So there's like, she's raising 2 kids. My dad's raising 6. They merge these families, which is
yeah.
insane. And so I was able to see all these points along the way that like, that were non-judgmental, open space. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have room for judgment because it was like I didn't know any different. There was nobody there like, oh, hey dogs. And my dog just knocked my whole arm. And um so I guess I hope that answered your question, but I just it
Yeah.
gave me a lot of examples of strength,
Yeah.
but non-judgment, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, and thank you for sharing all those stories with me because, I think, well, I know that our, you know, our our upbringing, our childhood, it creates this, space for us to learn these different things, whether they're good or bad or, neutral or whatever they are, right?
mhm,
So, seeing those spaces of strength and non-judgment, take us back to that moment where you got fired. And
mm,
in that moment, right? Like said that was the best thing that could ever happen to you. But in that moment, I'm thinking that you probably didn't immediately think that. So take us back like to that point in time because you're talking a lot about present day and where you're at today and the mindset you have today and these things that you've learned today because of this work that you've done. But that wasn't those things, right? Were not there years ago when this moment happened in your life that was like, well, shit, what do I do?
right.
And I heard you say I had to have the strength to make the decision to bet on myself. So, kind of walk us through that. Like, what happened? How did you overcome that? Just kind of take us back to that moment in time of your life.
Yeah, yeah, no, and you're right. In the moment, I was like, "What the is going on
Yeah.
right now?"
Yeah.
So, but I think you know this. I didn't know them, but there's this like intuition we have, and that Friday before, like I sensed something was, going on differently amongst, and like I had mentioned earlier, like there was a lot of resistance during those 2 years. There was like
Yes.
there was a boss and a peer that just we butted heads nonstop. And I don't butt heads with many, but this was a
Yeah,
rough
I can't
scenario.
imagine
I
that.
know.
That's the
it's I couldn't either, and I think that's why my brain was like, what is going on? Like, but I
Sure.
was like, you know
Yeah,
what, I'm not someone who like fails. Like, I don't believe in, like, I believe that, I failure just helps us go to the next step and like gives us lessons and
sure.
yada yada. So I was like, I'm going to make this square fit into this round hole. And
Mm,
I did that for 2 years. And so when they let me go, and the crazy part of, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been fired or whoever's been fired listening to this, like sometimes it's like this really like sweet, like not like, hey, we're letting you go because more companies are merging, blah, blah, blah. And that's what was happening. There was two reasons. Companies merged, there wasn't enough spots, and I wasn't meeting expectations at the time, which is the first time in 30 years I'd ever heard that. And I had a needs improvement, and which is totally fine. And then, but they escorted me out like a criminal. Like they took my stuff, and
yeah,
they were like, and I was like, well, let me get my stuff. Like you have to get out, you have to leave, and like telling me like almost like I had like robbed the place. And I was like, what
yeah,
is going on? And so
yeah,
they're escorting me down. So that's when the tears started coming, because I was more so that embarrassment, that shame,
yeah.
that like, and people are just looking at you. And so I get down to the stairs and I walk like with all my stuff to the garage, and I'm like, don't cry, like don't let the world see you crying, because I've I'm a recovering I got it girl. Like I'm strong and I'm fierce, and like I can handle all of this. And I got in the car and I was like, just
Yeah,
started crying. And I
yeah,
was like a little bit of like, oh my gosh, I just lost my job that I was making almost six figures with. And that's an interesting story too. I never in 30 years crossed over the six-figure mark. And in 1 year of when I started making money in this business, I crossed the six-figure mark. And there's a story behind that belief of what we're worth,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Later on. But I got to the car, I drove home. A couple calls came into me because people that like worked with me were like, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
And they called me, and we had it's an hour drive home, and they made me drive in an hour and a half, and then let me go and turn around and drive home. Like, why didn't you
Wow.
just tell me Friday before I left?
Yeah.
Just like partied all weekend. But anyway, so I get home, and I had lots of conversations, and I reached out to peers. And here's the funny part about it: the Health Coach Institute is what I joined 2 months previous, right? And I started my schooling with them 2 months previous. So I had 2 months of like observing people doing this thing called coaching,
Yeah.
watching people have businesses, doing the things that I know that I kind of knew that I was really good at, but I didn't know I could do it in my own business. I didn't know what
Sure.
coaching was. Like I only knew
Yeah.
football coach, soccer coach,
Sure.
right? And so I had this peace that kind of came over me towards the end of like the drive, and I got home and I was like, okay, the universe put this thing in front of you. And I knew what we talked a little universe talk at the time, because I had been
Sure.
2 months into the training, and around people that had possibility driven minds. And I was
Mm.
like, so is it possible I can do this? It's always possible. But I was like, but I'm not making any money. I don't know how to build a business. I'm not even
Yeah.
through the curriculum. Like, I don't know. But I had tasted a little bit of like the hope and the possibility. And so I did what a good person's supposed to do. I applied for jobs, and I interviewed, and I got offers. And every time I got an offer, I felt nauseous. And I was like, that's not a good feeling. Normally you'd be excited
Yeah.
about getting a job. But the third one is the where the story pivoted. I got on a call with somebody who was for a different company that I never worked for. And the guy was somebody that used to be my like 3 levels up regional manager at Potbelly when I used to manage for them. And he gets on the phone. He's like, Jackie? He's like, I don't need to interview you. I know who you are. He's like, I loved you. Like, he loved me when I worked at the other place. He's like, I'll hire you right now. But he asked me a question, Whitney. He said, well, what do you want to do with your life instead? And I'm like, why is he asking me this question? Like, I don't understand. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, I just feel like there's something else that like, that you're should be doing. And I was like, well, can I tell you about this new coaching thing I learned about? And I just started like vomiting. Like, I'm like, and then you can build a business, and then you can do this, and you can do that, and da 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 da. And my dogs are going bananas because I'm going bananas.
They feel the energy. That's
They
okay.
do. Every call I'm on that I get excited, because I love telling the story because I want people to see the opportunities and possibilities of what can happen when
Yeah.
you just bet on yourself. And so when he said to me that, I was like, I started telling him, he goes, well, that's awesome. He goes, how much money do you have in savings? I'm like, why is he? I'm like, I didn't click in. And I told him, I was like, well, I have money here and I've got credit cards here and I've got this, I had some backup money. And he's like, how long could you live on it with your bills? He got me thinking, and I was like, well, if I sell my house and I go into something cheaper, I could live a year on my money. And we did that. And he said, well, great. He goes,
Wow.
come back to me in a year. I'll give you a job if it doesn't work out. So he gave me like
Wow.
verbal permission because sometimes we won't give
Yeah.
ourselves permission, right? And I was like, my fear just dissipated. And I was like, he just gave me verbal permission to take a chance. And he made me
Yeah.
see that it's possible. And that's why having a coach or having a mentor or someone in your life at
Mm.
whatever times they're meant to be there, it's so important because they see what you cannot see. And he
Yeah.
saw something that I could not see at the time. And so
Yeah.
thank God he was on that call with me because this is random, girl. Like I didn't know he had gone to this company,
Sure.
and then a
Like,
recruiter called me, and then he ends up on the phone. And so that divine intervention made me go, okay, I'm going to do this. But I took 6 months off first. And that's the funny part. I took 6 months off before I like hired a coach. Um, and that 6 months I traveled 7 times. I went
wow.
away on my own time. I did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, wherever I wanted. And I didn't have to ask anyone for permission, including
Yeah.
myself. So that's a statement I live by right now. I'm going to do what I want, when I want, whenever I want. That's my ultimate freedom goal. And
Yeah.
I'm you can create that on very little money, by the way. Just want people to know that it doesn't have to be like millions of dollars. And so after that 6 months, I was like, I will never go back to a job and not have the freedom to choose the life I want to live. Because when you have the job and you have a boss, and by the way, a business can also tether you, not just a job.
Sure.
But I was like, I never want to let go of that like taste that I have now. And so
Yeah.
that's what um led me that conversation led me into betting on myself, going through the schooling, taking time off and healing myself because
Yeah.
I knew at that point there was this my relationship was on the rocks. We were literally about to break up. We were in separate rooms in our house because he lived with me. My health had gone like way on the back burner. I had been sick like 6 times that year because of all the travel and the heavy hours that I did for them and how I wasn't eating. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't working out. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. Um, and like this letting me go just released me from realized I needed to take care of me. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Wow. I mean, talk about the universe, like putting all the pieces together, right? And all the things just
mm-hmm,
right at the right time. But I think what strikes me so much about that story is you had been in a space where like you were giving this belief, right, to this gift of belief to other people for so
mm-hmm,
long, right? And then you show up on this call and this person who you previously had worked with, all of a sudden gives it back to you,
yes,
right? Like it was like he gave you the gift back and he's like, it's like I almost feel like he was like, Jackie, you've been doing this for everybody else. Like, hello, here, like take it for yourself.
mm-hmm,
And I love how, he didn't just like give you that moment, but then he said, okay, like how much money do you have in the bank? What do you like? And that pivotal question of what do you want to do with your life instead of asking you like, okay, well, what are you looking for in this position? Like all those like,
mm-hmm,
typical
mm-hmm,
questions. He kind of went the opposite way. So I love that he gave you that gift of belief back for yourself and instilled that like, hope and possibility within you that allowed you to get to, where you are today.
mm-hmm.
So I'm curious during that like 6 months of kind of healing yourself, you mentioned, because I asked like, what are your transcend moments, in this form? And you had mentioned like that you had been hiding from yourself and that you had spent a long time like not dealing with your stuff. Um, and so tell me a little bit about in that 6 months, what were some of those? Because it sounds very like um lovely and beautiful and like romantic and like 6 months of just doing whatever I want and like, but I don't really think that it was all that, right? Like, so you mentioned healing yourself. Tell me a little bit about like some of the worst moments of that and how you worked through that. Like, how did you overcome those moments and how did you get to this space of like 6 months later saying, okay, I really want to jump in. I'm going to, hire someone to help me make this vision possible. And I'm going to take the steps that I want to move forward.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about that 6 months.
Well, what's interesting as you're saying that, I'm like, once I hired the coach, I realized how much more that I was going to have to go through to get to where I wanted to go. Like I thought like, I
Sure.
just healed some stuff. I just released some stuff. I'm good. And then I got the coach and I was
Sure.
like, oh, because she was able to like really help me open up more than I ever, did.
Wow.
And it's, yeah, gosh. No, it wasn't all, I call it, it's not all rainbows and unicorns,
Yeah.
by any means. So a couple things that stand out for me when you ask that question is one, so June 2018 is when I joined my coaching schooling. And then August 2018 is when I got fired. And then November 2018 is when I went to my first big event with that coaching company, with
Mhm.
HCI. And at that event, they asked this question. They were like, oh, the 600 of you or 800 of you in the room, and you're just like all pumped up and you're excited.
Yeah.
And they're like, and what is the thing in your closet that you want to let go and like let out? Or I don't know how they phrased the question.
Yeah.
And I turned to your partner and tell them. And I turned, and this is like 2 months in of learning. And I turned and I was like, I've been hiding an eating disorder for 30 years. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, like,
Yeah.
like if you could see my face and like if you're listening to the audio, like it was like it's like I opened a fire hydrant and
Yeah.
all the water just went
Yeah.
because
Wow.
I legit, as a grown adult, was still releasing my anger into a toilet. And as a grown adult, was like stuffing my emotions down and trying to find love and companionship with food instead
Yeah.
of really feeling. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't willing to feel. And I
Yeah.
call myself the recovering I got it girl because for my whole life, I always felt like I was in this thing alone. Like it's just me and I don't need any help. I've got it because like I said, I paid for everything since I was 14. I worked every day. I worked at college 40 hours plus 18 credits, or I couldn't go to college because my work study program was 40 hours in the dining hall, restaurant business again, where like I was able to stay in school, but if I didn't work, I didn't stay in school. So everything, cars, insurance, clothes, like houses, like keep going, like trips, everything. But my parents didn't have any money left when it came to me. So I had to take care of all that. And then so that just established this like, I got it. I don't need any help. Like everything's on my shoulders and
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And
A lot of pressure.
yeah. And my experience of being the baby, there wasn't enough time for me to like anyone to be there for me. So I very much raised my own self when it came to emotions, when it came to,
Yeah.
so I had to find my own survival mechanisms. And
Yeah.
that over time became my survival mechanism. And it was, I have to maintain happiness. I can't bother anybody with these emotions. I have to make sure everyone else is okay. And here's how I'm going to, when I'm lonely, I'm going to eat to take care of that one. And then when I'm angry, when I'm pissed off, or when I've got this, I'm going to use the bathroom for that one, And so this is what I found over time during that healing session and during my coaching that with my coach that first year. I discovered like when I opened my mouth, I was saying that I was like, oh, now I can start telling people. And then I started telling people one on one. And it's funny because people who've known me since like elementary school was like, what? And like
Yeah.
people who've known me for like 10 years, like, no, like I was good. I was good at hiding it. Like I was really
Yeah.
good at keeping it like, and I guess I was ready to start feeling. I got to the point when I released that, I was like, all right, I guess it's time to start feeling. And that's not fun. That's not fun. When the number one thing that I wanted to do, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is want to help others to avoid self. want to do for others, because the main reason why we want to do for everyone else is because we don't want to face ourselves. And
Whoa.
that was me 200%. Like
Yeah.
I would create so much noise, Whitney. That's why I worked so much. That's why I worked in the restaurant industry. That's why I would, every free moment, I would gather people together and we'd all go out to dinner, and I'd have all these like 10, 15 women, and we'd all go out and friends. And I always had to be really busy all the time,
Mm,
because if I got quiet,
yeah.
it hurt me.
Sure.
And I don't need to
Yeah.
deal with that. That's too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what allowed you to hear yourself, to feel yourself? I mean, other than this coaching space, right, that you know, invested in, but I'm curious, you know, were there moments that happened where it was like, okay, this is okay? Like, you know, I think, you know, you said like I started telling people. So this like outward acknowledgement of like, yes, this is like this is happening. It's been happening and I don't want it to happen anymore, right? So kind of this acknowledgement was the first step. But after that, what were some of the things that, you know, if listeners are listening to this and they're, you know, maybe experiencing the same thing, so an eating disorder, or they're experiencing even just like you said, filling your life with all the noise so that you don't have to be quiet with yourself and feel your feelings, think your thoughts. What were some of the things that you did that allowed you to like keep yourself in a safe space so you could feel those feelings and hear yourself and then work towards, you know, that healing space?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to definitely put one caveat to what I said, is like, once you open up and say it, it just doesn't go away. Like, it's
Sure.
not like
Sure.
instantly I stopped.
Right.
And even like, a year into my like coaching, I was like still like, if you want to call it, like going back to like relapsing or going back to the
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
Because guys, it's not a one and done. Like, it's not like, oh,
Yeah.
I did my work and for the
Yeah,
day and I'm
thank you for
good.
saying
No,
that. That's very important to
no.
know, because I think some people do think like, okay, well, I said it or I acknowledged it and now like, you know, like
Yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah.
done.
Like
And
the
like healing is this one and done thing. And it's like, actually, it's not. So
no.
that's so important to say. So thank you for saying that.
No worry. Yeah, you're welcome. It's like kind of like I ate healthy for a day. Am I skinny? Am
Yeah,
I healthy? Am
right.
I move my body for a day? No, like, no, you have to mentally, work through those things every day. It's a lifelong journey. Um,
Mm,
in a good way, not like this like painful, arduous way. It gets to be fun over time, but it wasn't, in the beginning it's a little rough and rocky, and that's okay. And that's part of the journey. Um, but some of the things that I did, so someone said to me one time, do you know what an anchor is? And an anchor is something that you anchor into your why, right? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And at the time, I was not like a jewelry person. I was not like someone who wore things, but even if it was like a little like, band. So they said, find something that can help you break the state. And I didn't really understand what that was
yeah.
either, all new to me. But this kind of saved my life. So I want to share this thing you can do is I
Yes.
got myself like a $6 chakra bracelet from like, I don't even know what chakras were, by the way. I just thought it was really pretty and cool. And I got a bracelet from Amazon and I put it on. And I linked that bracelet to the why I wanted to stop this and love my body, respect my body. Because we can say those things like, I love myself, I respect my body, but the belief might not be there. So the affirmations only go so far if you haven't worked on the belief system
Yeah.
behind it,
And then
right?
there's a lot of, for me, what I feel like comes up is a lot of resistance. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this thing that like I want to believe, but I don't believe. So I'm feeling super resistant. And then I feel like a fraud. So it's like it almost creates more shame. Like
Yeah.
that's what I've
Yes.
noticed
Yes. Yes. Yes.
for
Yes.
myself.
Because my actions didn't stop, like I said, right?
Sure.
The behaviors, like the actions and the results of whatever I was doing didn't stop. And I can't say like, so a fraud is a great word, what you just said, because I would say these things and yet I'd go do the action still. And I'm like, well, obviously I'm a lying sack of poop because I just did that. And,
Sure.
and so it's a never ending circle.
Yeah.
So the first thing was no judgment, just curiosity statement. I
Mm,
just to be in no judgment. So when I took those actions, understanding the positive intention behind those actions, really helped me go, okay, I understand this is my safety mechanism. This is what's protected me over the last 30 years to get me to where I am today. So I
Yeah.
understand why I had to work through like figuring out why. But the two simple things without all the inner work and deep work was I created a nourishment list of things I could do instead of that action. So when I'd
Oh,
walk into the kitchen and I'd go to grab the fridge or the cabinet to like fulfill a emotional void that I was trying to fill, like a loneliness, whatever it is that I was trying to stuff food into, or whatever I was stressed about and anger, that because I knew that's usually always the next step. When you binge, like the next step is to release the anger. So like it's fill the
mhm.
loneliness and release the anger for me. That was me.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the bracelet would block, like I would call the refrigerator and I'd see the bracelet and I did a whole journaling and like attached to this bracelet all the meanings of what I wanted. And I would go, okay, I understand, even though I want to open this fridge and do XYZ and do blah, 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 I get to choose differently. And here's a list I put on my
Yeah.
fridge that I get to choose. So this list had things like go play with the dogs,
Yeah.
go, uh, coach at the time was like, take a bath. And I'm like, I hate baths. I feel like you're sitting in a bowl of soup. I don't understand why, but I'm a little different than others. But
I
I'm
feel
still
the
not,
same way.
still not there. It has nothing to do with my body being in there naked, but it has to be like, I'm sitting in a dirty bowl of soup. I'm like,
Yes.
why would I want to sit here?
Yes, me too.
So, okay, good. Yay! Someone else is on my team, the no bath team. But the nourishment list had things that like call a friend, go to the lake, like things
Mhm.
that I've discovered that I could do instead to break the state. And so I would choose one and I would stop. And then but I'd first ask the question, like, am I really hungry? Or am I
Yeah.
like, or am I upset about something right now? Like, what's my state of being in this point?
Yeah.
And this bracelet triggered a lot. So even like for me, and those of you listening who can experience, who probably can relate, is you're driving down the street and I would be like, okay, I could get something for $1 there and there. And I know dinner's in about 2 hours, but I could like fulfill this anger of like how pissed off I am about work because I'm happy Jackie and I can't be angry. So I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this. I would have this chatter, this like
Yeah.
this nonstop chatter in my brain. And the bracelet would be on my wrist while I'm driving, and I'd be like, okay, why are you thinking these thoughts? I
Yeah.
just had to talk to myself. And over
Yeah.
time, I rewired like my behaviors to the point when we got into COVID, we were all working in our kitchens, we were working at our dining room tables, and I was in
Yeah.
my kitchen and I didn't have to worry about it.
Wow.
Like to
I
go
mean,
from like, right?
yeah, like how powerful. And you know, obviously, like with this asterisk, like this is not just a one day thing, right? This is a constant every day, every moment. But what I hear you saying is this major, like, acceptance of, yes, I feel this way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
first, like, I accept it. Like, I accept myself. I accept that I feel this way. And it's okay. Like, it's okay that I feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
And what can I do instead? Like, what's going on? What can I do instead?
Yes.
Right. So it's like this acceptance and then that like loving nourishment. And so what a powerful, I mean, just like thing, like a bracelet. It's like, and that's why I love that you brought up this idea of anchors because it's what for people outside of the coaching world, like Jackie and I obviously are both coaches, so we're familiar with this. But for those of you who aren't, anchors are something that can be so powerful and so pivotal. Um, but they take that practice, right? Like it's a constant practice, just like you would practice yoga or practice running or practice baseball, right? Like it's a practice. And so, um, tell us now, like you said earlier in this interview, like, you know, that's why I call myself a freedom coach. So tell us, like, through this journey, you've gotten to a space where you are choosing your freedom. You are not only choosing your freedom, but you're also teaching other women and empowering other women how to choose their freedom. So tell us a little bit about that space and just where you are today and kind of bring us full circle to where you are in this moment.
So it's funny that you're asking that because I just had this memory come up yesterday, I think it was, over the weekend. And it was this memory from 2020 and on Facebook memory. Sorry, you know, like we all get those
Yeah.
Facebook memories. And everything that I stand for and that I help people with today was in a post I made 2 years ago. And it
Wow.
reminded me that who we are is in here, everything we need is inside.
Yeah.
And as we go through this journey, like to really free that woman inside who's dying to come out and play. I call it
Yeah.
the leader inside. You can call it the goddess inside, whatever the heck you want to call her. Call her Sally. I don't care. But she's dying to come out and play.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I was like, because in this coaching journey, we have to figure out who our ideal people are and blah, 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 you know, and all that stuff, right? But and like what's our focus? What's our niche? And I used to stress about it. And then I read, and I was like, wow, for the last 2 years, I've really just firmly believe in this freedom. And and at first I was like, it's freedom of, you know, time and money and location, but really it's like the freedom to be you, like
Yeah.
emotionally, like everything. And so now the current being, I joke around because I'm in an RV and I live full-time RV living right now. And people are like, does that mean to be free, I've got to move into an RV? I'm like, well, it's an option. I don't
Sure.
have to do
Sure.
what I'm doing. It's an option.
Sure.
It's an option that I love profusely, but for me, freedom is a feeling that's created from the thoughts, and you can have money freedom through the thoughts that you have around your feelings about that money, about the money you have or you don't have. You get to choose. How are you going to feel about your current state of being? I don't make millions of dollars, and yet I live the most free life I've ever lived in my entire life.
Mm.
And I feel so free because of what we just talked about a minute ago.
Yeah.
I free from the chatter. So there's
Yeah.
a mental freedom. There's the every one of us has something that over, like, we just chatter all the time about
Yeah.
money, our body, like food, like I did, love, like you there's just this constant chatter of like the past that we can't change and the future we can't control. And we're like, when you can quiet that down,
Yeah.
it is the most freeing thing in the world. And don't get me wrong, it still comes, but you get to let it float by like clouds. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be something that consumes you like it did with me driving down the street and walking into my kitchen in every moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. That, I think that chatter is something, and like I I don't know, it's interesting to hear you explain it that way because um I experience similar, like in different areas, like, about different things. And it is this chatter, right? It is this like thing, but it is really powerful when you can acknowledge it and then just let it go. Okay, like, and moving on, it's
yeah,
like, so I love that this being of freedom is what you have brought to your life, and that, like you said, it doesn't have to look like living in an RV, right? Like, it can look like anything you want, but it's more about how you believe you're being in this space.
mhm,
So I think that's so powerful because it's definitely it's a choice too. I think you've mentioned,
yes,
that, right? Like, it's a choice that you make, and it's a daily choice. It's not just this
yes.
momentary one day choice and then, we're here.
Right. No,
So,
it's a day-to-day choice, and the it doesn't the challenge we have is there's so much noise out there in society as well of what it should
yeah.
look like, what it should be like. There's a lot of instant gratification on social media, and I love social media because I found that it is a digital diary for me that
Mhm.
helps people get to know me and helps like people experience life and yada yada. And that's so I have a good view about it, but there's a lot of compare and despair and all that other stuff because of it. And if there's one message that you just said that's so important is that it's a choice and then like what we believe about situations. So for example, we can feel, let's go money. That's probably one of those popular ones, right? I can live a life of freedom on 20K a year or 200K a year or a million a year. It's a mental state
Yeah.
of being.
Yeah.
And I read a book called, in the very early on, about 2 years ago, I read a book called Illusion of Money. And one of the questions he asks in there by Kyle Cease, he says, um, if you're on a park bench in New York City and you have nothing, how can you feel safe, loved, with nothing?
Wow.
And that's like that inner versus external.
Yeah.
Like we have all these external things that we think are going to fulfill the inner need, just like with my eating disorder. We have these external things that are going to fulfill the internal need. But when you can get internally safe, love, and belong internally,
Yeah.
like within you, and like that woman inside of you that is dying to come out, that's true freedom.
Yeah. Ugh,
Mm.
beautiful.
Mm.
I know.
Mm.
Oh,
We could talk for
well,
hours, girl.
I know we could. What a great just conversation. And I really want to thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing your story and your moments of transcendence, throughout your life. I'd love to finish up with some fun final four questions. Are you up for it?
I think so.
Okay. The first one is, if you were a song or music genre, what would you be?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, you're gonna throw some curveballs at me now. Song or genre? You know what's funny? I just said something the other day to somebody. I said I think I've always had an inner cowgirl inside of me
Uh-huh.
that I didn't realize. Because now that I've been in Texas, like I got earrings and hats and boots and all sorts of stuff, right? And it's like bringing this like version of me that's always been in there. Because
Yeah.
I don't believe, but like, and it's just so much more freeing. And I know there's a lot of depressing country songs, but at the
Yes.
same time, like I just love it. Just yeah. And my boyfriend will kill me when if he heard me say that country music is my like. He hates country music, and but I really feel this like just this chill,
Yeah.
free like vibe
Okay.
when I'm in like those fun songs, and even the ones
Okay.
that have a lot of emotions, because God knows I
Yeah.
pushed away emotions for 40 years.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of emotions in country
Yeah.
music, and don't get me, I am no expert in country music. Let me just put that there. But I always go to that station. It's kind of my go-to,
Yeah.
and I open the windows and I got my sunglasses on, my hair's flowing, and I'm like,
There you
yeah.
go.
So,
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, next up, if you were a city, where would you be?
oof. So you see, it's funny because the whole purpose of RV living is that we've been exploring the country to figure out where we want to land and plant our flag.
Okay.
Um, there's so even though I don't ever want to live in New York City, there is a magical sense
Mm.
of crazy security I feel when I walk the streets of New York City, even though it's
Huh.
probably like considered one of the most like dangerous cities per se. But I did a lot of store restaurant openings up there for the last company I was
Mm.
with, and I did like I'd have to walk the streets at all times and nights and days and this and that, and you just had so much to watch and observe
Yeah.
and watch life going on, and so it's very alive. I felt very
Yeah.
alive walking the streets of New York City. That sounds
Yeah.
really funny. I sound like a call girl, like I was walking the New York streets, but no, like I there's an aliveness of that city that um like I don't know, I just felt it was very real and alive.
Yeah. I love it. That I feel like that fits you. That fits
Yeah.
your personality.
But I want to go back to the country and live in the country. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
live in the city. Like I want to
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I like the spirit of it, but like I like the country too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then the last kind of if one is, if you were a candy bar, what would you be?
Ooh, gosh. Well, I know what my favorite candy bar is. That's the Reese's. I just
Yeah.
absolutely adore Reese's peanut butter cups.
Okay.
But let me
Yeah.
think. Hold on. There's one that the old school one called like the whatchamacallit.
Oh,
Like each
yeah.
bite there was like different like
Yeah.
textures and like crunchiness and
Okay.
surprises. So
Yeah.
that one sticks out like personality wise. But I'm like
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not a big sweets person, but when I
Okay.
am, Reese's peanut butter cups are like kind of like the downfall.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. And then the final question, and I am going to ask this to all of, the guests that come on. If you could tell the entire world one thing about healing, what would it be?
Ooh, God, there's so many. On the journey, there's so many like isms. Hmm. Okay, this is kind of like a two-parter, but the same concept. I like to say like see the fear and do it anyway, like feel the fear and do it
Yeah.
anyway, because that's
Yeah.
really important to
Such
me
a good
that
one.
And what a side note to that is that there's discomfort no matter what direction you go in life. If you stay still and don't do anything that you desire, you don't go for your dreams, and you stick in the past and you stay there, that's a discomfort. There's also discomfort going forward into the unknown and deciding that you want more and exploring that and going for it and taking action and seeing the fear and do it anyway. So either way, there's discomfort. So I like to tell people, just choose your discomfort. And I will always choose the future focused possibility discomfort, because I will not lie to you and tell you that it's rainbows and unicorns going that way.
Right.
Total BS.
Yeah.
Discomfort. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you get to choose it's discomfort sitting here doing nothing and not doing what it is that you really want to do.
Yeah.
And have and discover and oof.
Yeah.
Choose discomfort.
Yeah. Great. Wonderful. Okay. Well, tell us where people can connect with you. Obviously, you've shared your story, and I'm sure people can relate to the things that you said, or if they are experiencing some of the things that you experienced in your journey, if they want to connect with you, where can they do that? And I will put all this information in the show notes.
Awesome. I like to start with just saying, like, if you're a Facebook person, I built my entire business through Facebook. Just be my friend. Like, you can message me and say, I heard you on, can we be like, you don't have to ask me, just friend me.
Yeah.
But if you can mention that, then I know like you came from here. And then I'm on Instagram. I'm there. I'm on LinkedIn. But my main jam, and if you really want to get to know me, like what you see and what you hear is what you get no matter what. And I think Whitney knows that clearly.
Yeah.
Facebook is like a journey for me, and it's my whole journey of like life, relationships, my dogs, my RV living, my coaching, and everything. So it's a great place to get to know me. I do have a website. It's going to be upgraded to more, so you'll get to know me more there. But right now, my Facebook is my jam. And it just shows me who I am. So.
Okay. All right. Very nice. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm excited to share your story with the world. So thank you so much.